Yet again to another great showcase, this time the iRacing Showdown featuring GrandPOOBear. What an exciting day we have planned, and all of our participants are rearing to go. However, we have to start with the basics, which is introductions. My name's Randy. It's great to be back again on another Twitch Rivals. Always so fun to be here, but I'm joined by two experts. Talk about racing and racing experts. This man, he fills both of those ledgers completely. I'm talking about Evan Pasoko, iRacing commentator for over 3 years. Evan, so great to have you here. Bring your expertise to the show.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me, and whoever decided to put me up here with you guys as opposed to on track with all of our streamers clearly made the right decision. We've got some really exciting cars at some pretty daunting tracks on the docket for this afternoon, so it's going to be a good day.
It's amazing. We were talking behind the show. He said, I like to stay off the track, to be honest, versus on. A guy, however, who has been on a track, who has actually driven an F1 car. You may know him, you may love him by watching his stream on Twitch or just hanging out with him and his infectious energy. It's Tom. Tom, welcome, man. I'm excited to have you.
It's amazing to be here. I can't wait. Last time also doing racing. This time around, though, iRacing. Cannot wait. It's going to be chaos. We're going to have crazy weather. We're going to get into it later, though, but I cannot wait. I'm super happy to be here with you guys.
You know, from California, crazy weather, it kind of starts to scare me a little bit, but I think they're going to be ready. And we'll talk to GrandPOOBear in a moment, too. But before we get into it, let's walk you through the format for today and how it is going to work. We've brought 20 players in all across streaming and racing. And that is really the interesting key. Some of these players are streamers first. Some of these players, they're actually racers first and streaming. That's what makes this so exciting. You really get to see iRacing from both perspectives. We'll have 10 teams. So these players, whether they're in our kind of pro category or our amateur category, will each be teaming up to make teams of 2. And Tom, this format is really exciting because it gives everyone a chance.
100%. Of course, you start off with a qualifier, and then, of course, you're going to be positioned in the way of who is quickest. So yeah, you'll see the fast at the front and then the more slower ones at the back. But then in the race B, the second race, you'll have people that are normally going to be a little bit slower at the front. So those quick drivers will have to overtake, and the slower drivers will have to try and keep them behind. So it'll be basically two completely different races that we'll see from race A and race B with a little bit of different weather for each race as well. So it'll be very interesting, right, Evan?
Oh,
yeah, the weather is the big thing to that point, right? I mean, the weather's going to make Silverstone in the dry completely different right now than Silverstone in the wet. And that's going to be the fun thing, is not only are there multiple classes of cars, but we're going to 3 of the toughest tracks on iRacing in the world, regardless of the weather conditions. So I think to your point of the fact that a lot of the people that we're going to have competing today are kind of racers first, or do this at a pretty decently high level on iRacing on a week-to-week basis, is going to mean it's a good show, because GrandPOOBear did not hold back when he picked the slate of tracks for today.
I mean, I was going to tee you up on that. It was perfectly done by Tom, but asking about the differences in some of these tracks and just the tracks that we're going to, GrandPOOBear on a stream just 5 minutes ago said, you know, when we started this format, I don't think rain was in it. So it's a challenge in some ways to drive what you're used to. And I got to say this just because I'm learning to pronounce it. Spa-Francorchamps.
There you go.
Spa-Francorchamps. Come
Perfect.
on.
Perfect.
Also, Evan, since you've got a little experience in iRacing, walk us through quickly just the difference between the captains, the cars they'll be driving, and their teammates.
Yeah, so the captains, based on iRating, which is kind of an in iRacing ranking based on a driver's performance, are going to be in those GTP cars, or the Grand Touring prototypes. They're the most technologically advanced cars that were introduced, that most recent spec in 2023. They're going to be the faster cars. So their teammates, based on a lower iRating, again, that's an in-game ranking, going to be in the GT3 cars. So a little bit slower. That's why the speed difference and kind of this multi-class racing is going to be fun, because on paper, GTP faster than GT3. We talk about weather, we talk about varying skill ranks, we talk about 4 different racetracks. I think there's going to be some intermingling between those as the day goes on.
I mean, I said it in rehearsal as well. Lamborghini and slow. It just doesn't make sense to me. Not being the fastest. I mean, that's just going to be maybe a mind shift for some of our viewers watching. But that's the way it is with racing. We're talking 200, 220 plus with some of these GTP cars. So it should be very exciting. And all that leads to what they'll earn. The prizing, $15,000 in this Twitch Rivals for our captains and teammates here. First place, significant, because not only will you get 25 points for first place compared to to, I think, 18 points for second and 15 for third. That difference is going to show up in the pricing as well, although not as stark of a contrast from first to third, just 250 down in terms of the notches. But the big one here, Tom, is teams. The team championship is going to be figured out based on the points from the combined pro racer or the highest iRating racer and their teammate on the lower side, the GT3 cars. But if you come in first on aggregate, that's $2,000 right there.
Yeah, and it's not just working. It's going to be about working together here, because those quicker drivers will be in quicker cars, and maybe you want to help your teammate a bit in maybe perhaps even overtaking in that 15-minute race that we'll be doing. So yeah, of course, all the teams right here are matched on pure pace. So we'll have quicker teams or quicker drivers alongside the more casual racers. I don't like calling them slow because they are going to be very, very quick today.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Evan, anybody stand out here in your list of participants for today?
I mean, all these drivers have a lot of experience on the sim, right? A lot of them will stream that on occasion, but I think the name that jumps out to me, which maybe some of the community tuning in for the first time may not recognize, is Tony Kanaan there in the bottom right-hand corner. Yes, he's got a sim racing team on iRacing. He does a lot of it himself, but he is a real-world professional race car driver first. And two things I want to toss at you. First, 2013 Indianapolis 500 champion. Yes, that Indy 500. And I know we're racing at Daytona later today. He's won a Daytona 24 as well.
Unbelievable. We've got an Indy 500 winner in our Twitch rivals. Talk about not just Tony, but talk about Twitch rivals. Way to go. We're making it happen, bringing professionals in all aspects of it. And you can't forget our professional streamers who do this for a living as well. We appreciate you. Thanks for bringing your communities here for the show. Chat, we love you. We're going to be interacting all throughout the show today. And of course, Evan and Tom will be answering your questions. And so will I as we have breaks and go in and out of these races. But I got to tell you, it's time. It's time for Guessing with Duncan, where you have the chance to win big. Check out the polling widget in the extension, make your predictions, and watch your name shoot up the leaderboard. The top 10 finishers get $10 Duncan and Twitch gift cards. And the first place winner claims a sweet Duncan sling bag. Enter !Duncan for the full rules. Cast your prediction now. Always fun to see Duncan supporting. Shout out to Duncan as well. I'm probably going to have to grab some coffee from them a little bit later in the show as we continue to turn up the heat. But, one of the things, Evan, that this is so exciting is seeing those different realms of racing, whether you're more stream focused, more casual, and just not as, competitive in this originally. We get a chance to blend both of those modes here with our participants list. So it'll be cool to see who bounces off tips and tricks and how they communicate as a group to overall win this championship.
Yeah, I think the kind of racing we're going to see too is unique, right? A lot of arcade or simcade racing titles focus on road racing or oval racing, but on iRacing, you got all of it. You can race trophy trucks off-road or rallycross WRC. You can do NASCAR ovals, IndyCar here today with a combo of prototypes and GT3 cars. So not only, will they have varying levels of experience just in racing in general, but also on the sim. A lot of these guys may not race GT3s a lot, right? How do they adapt? Are they working, bouncing some tips off of some of the other drivers? And even a Tony Kanaan who does a lot, right? How does he get feedback from somebody who's a Casey Kerwin, who is a sim first driver, who's won championships here on iRacing? So I think that's my favorite part too, is it's a level playing field. And again, these tracks are tough. A lot of the time you go to a race at a Spa or a Daytona, you're prepping for a 12-hour, 24-hour race. You can dedicate a lot of time to kind of honing in your craft. You can't really spend a ton of time focusing on any of the tracks because all four are so tricky.
Well, it's a great segue into the person who helped set up this format with these tracks as well. We've got an interview standing by with the person this show is featuring. It should be Grand Pooh Bear joining us here as we jump into a conversation. Yes, there he is, the man himself. Grand Pooh Bear, how you doing?
Gentlemen? Wonderful, wonderful. I actually had to jump back from my sim, to my normal computer for this interview here. So I swear to God, I'm not playing on controller. I just want to be clear about that to everyone out there. I got a really nice rig. So.
We'll be during the show today.
And everyone in this race will tell you, the more expensive the rig, the faster you go. Everyone knows that. The more money you spend, the faster you go. So.
I'm gonna Google that, by the way,
Yeah,
and
you
see if
Google
that's really real. Grand Pooh Bear, I love kind of you love hard games. You love challenges. And I think right now, this is a challenging setup. I saw your stream a little bit earlier. You're going, this rain is a little difficult. What was it in your mind, the focus of coming up with this type of format to challenge and both make it exciting as a viewer to watch you guys go through this?
Well, one thing we wanted to do is we wanted to neuter Casey Kerwin just a little bit and make sure that he didn't have the God teammate as well. So we made sure that he had last draft pick, because if you know who Casey is, he is just incredible at all forms of racing. As you guys were talking about, is on racing. The man can do everything. So that was number one, was make sure that we would have. So we came up with the draft order, kind of did a reverse draft, and we also wanted to do the reverse grid order, because I think that's always really fun to have reverse grid order. Watch those really fast drivers kind of have to fight through everyone and go to the front. And the other thing I wanted to do is, I'm a big endurance race fan. I'm a huge IMSA guy. So I thought having this multi-class would just really add to it and really show people kind of a type of racing they might not be used to. Having two different cars on the track at the same time, you're going to see the pros have to kind of make their way through all of us, casual racers, I guess you could call us. Me definitely. But this is my favorite thing in the world to do. And it's going to be so much fun to have Tony Kanaan, Indy 500 winner. Every time I start up my motion sim, I actually see his face, and he's going to be blowing by me in a GTP today. And that's just super exciting. So I'm really
perhaps in 15 minutes you can keep him behind, as in like
you got
maybe.
shots at it.
Not at Road Atlanta. Probably not at Road Atlanta. I think we'll see him at Road Atlanta, but Daytona we might be able to miss him. Daytona and Spa we might not see him at all. So
you mentioned Daytona. He's won a Daytona 24, so it's a pretty good pick for his favor. You've done endurance races though here on the sim at Spa, at Daytona. Tell us about what into picking these 4 tracks.
One of the things, I definitely wanted to pick a track. I've been wanting to learn Silverstone, so this is one of the reasons I wanted to force myself to learn Silverstone. I've been that is one that I just haven't learned for, whatever reason. I have limited time on the sim. I gotta be speed running and doing all these other things as well, this is like my 42nd Rivals I've done this year already. So, I got to make sure I'm up on all those games. But one of those reasons I wanted to learn Silverstone, we made to make sure. And then the other 3 tracks simply are just my favorite tracks. I love Road Atlanta so much. I think Road Atlanta is like such a fun track, even more fun with IMSA racing. Petit Le Mans is, in my opinion, the best race in America every year. Daytona is just classic, and we just had the 24 that just happened. You get the bank turns. And I also think Daytona is going to be really, really fun in the rain because of those, the big banked oval is completely dry, and then you go back into wet. I think that's going to be a very, very fun experience. And then Spa is quite simply the greatest track in all the world. So I wanted to race it.
Awesome. Now, obviously, there's going to be a lot of focus going into those next 4 races, but how is the preparation going for you? And maybe even like communication with all the other drivers in the run up to the big event today?
Well, for me, it was a lot of like driving in the rain, because the tracks that I know already, and I think that's probably for all of us, because rain's only been out in this game for 2 weeks now. And it is, for me at least, someone that's never stepped into a real race car, you know what I mean? Completely on the sim, and vast majority of that in iRacing. It's like learning again. It is like my first day in iRacing again when you jump on rain. It is a completely different experience. Your lines are completely different. You're looking for puddles. Yep. There's spray coming at you in the face. You're just all over the track in ways that you never are when it's dry. So for me, it was really focusing on not just doing these tracks in the rain, but trying to do any race in the rain at all, just so I could get used to being behind other cars and not being able to see. That was such a huge thing for me. So, yeah, that's what I did.
Well, it's been great to see all of the details that went into this, the thought, the strategy, the passion for racing as well. Grand Pooh Bear, we're really excited to see how today ends up, and we could tell, this is going to be a fun one for you and everyone involved.
Yeah, before I leave, I just want to say thank you again to everyone at iRacing, everyone at Twitch Rivals. I've been nagging Twitch Rivals to do this for like a year and a half, you know what I mean? And I'm so happy that it finally came through. Everyone at iRacing has been so incredible and supportive with helping everyone out. And I just want to thank, again, all these drivers that are taking time out of their day. We literally have a world cast here. So there are some people that it's like 3 a.m. for them right now. So I just really want to say thank you to all of them. And thank you to you guys for coming out and doing this. And I appreciate it. Yeah, this is gonna be awesome. I'm so hyped for this.
We're gonna make it a show. It's gonna be awesome.
I love it, man. You're bringing the hype. Continue to bring the hype. Just bring it in the rain on the racetracks as we get going well. So we we appreciate you, Grand Pooh Bear, everybody, and we'll let you get ready for the races.
Absolutely.
All right, that's always fun. To talk to the man who designed it as well, our iRacing Showdown featuring Grand Pooh Bear. We have a lot to talk about, a lot to digest after that interview, and a lot to look forward to coming up really soon. So don't go anywhere. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with the start of our iRacing Showdown featuring Grand Pooh Bear. Welcome back to the Twitch Rivals iRacing Showdown featuring Grand Pooh Bear, Rain Day, Evan Pasoko, and Tom here ready to go. Man, we just talked to Grand Pooh Bear. Evan, he's excited. He's active. He's live, ready to get this race started.
He's bringing the energy, and you're going to need that for 8 races over the course of 4 hours. He's passionate about iRacing. I love to see that and really excited to see what he and the other 19 drivers are about to put on.
I can't wait either, and we're so close to getting into the action, the qualifying, the racing as well. But before we do that, you may be noticing that we have a new feature on Twitch Rivals. It's called The Feed, where we bring your commentary directly into the show using graphics. Join the conversation by dropping some fire comments in the chat or send us your best memes and one-liners on X or Instagram at Twitch Rivals. Use the hashtag TRFeed, and maybe you'll see your comment on the show. We'd also love to see your racing setup. So if you guys have cool racing setups, you got speed, show it on the feed, TR feed. Make sure to hashtag that as well. Tom, I know, you have a racing setup going on. Are you going to be soliciting a photo over there, trying to get on the feed?
Oh, mate, I've got my phone ready. I am currently in my racing setup, actually. In my racing setup, got my wheel right here. If I'm angry, I can throw it away, the wheel.
Oh, there it is. There it is. It's one of those great things, the way we introduce opportunities for you, the chat, to be involved in these shows as well, from the breaks to now. But it is also time to start talking about racing. I think, Tom, I had a chance to ask Evan about it, but I want to ask you, Grand Pooh Bear, so much energy getting ready for this and setting the show up. He said it's a global show. People from all different time zones, 3 a.m. for some of the drivers. That's got to actually play maybe a part in how the racing goes, or at least some of the challenges that people are going through in different ways, whether they have experience or not in sim racing. Maybe they don't even have sleep.
100%. I mean, some of them might just have woken up. We'll see when we get their screens up. We'll see whether they have like little thingies underneath their eyes, whether they've just woken up or not. And some of them might just be, almost falling asleep. But I will say they're probably not going to be able to fall asleep, because this will be exhilarating. 4 races, or 8 races, rain, dry weather, and honestly, like you said, Grand Pooh Bear's energy was infectious. It's so awesome to see him. Obviously, it was a little bit of an achievement for him as well, finally achieving that iRacing Twitch Rivals, which I'm super excited to be part of, and I can't wait to see some insane racing, because I think as well, having basically two races happening at the same time with 2 different classes will be epic. And Evan and I will have to do a very good job. Tagging the viewers along, because there's two races going on at the same time, but it will be fine. There's 20 drivers. Evan and me will be keeping track of everything. It'll be good.
You've been in a car, but Evan, you've also been commentating iRacing so much. So I want to leave it open to you. Rain is kind of new, and one of the things that you can't really train for in something like that, in situations where you've never experienced driving for real in the rain in an F1 car. I would imagine Tony, we mentioned him, a highlight, an Indy 500 winner, has experienced rain, has experienced all types of conditions. Do you think that kind of plays into the value of being able to bring that into the sim, even though it is a sim?
I think definitely. And iRacing's Rain, because it's so new and it's been in development for years, it's going to work differently than Rain in maybe some other racing titles. So I think a lot of our streamers in this race may have experienced Rain in racing games before, but that is not Rain in iRacing. And in theory, that's going to help out a Tony Kanaan or somebody else who's driven a real world car. But the biggest thing when it comes to Rain, and I think it can even apply a little bit in the dry, right? In a wild card night like this, is it's you versus the track, not you versus the other cars. Limit mistakes. And I think that's especially so in the rain. If you can stay out of trouble, you might have a good day.
Well, I cannot wait to hear these players take on these challenges and have a ton of fun like we were seeing. I hear the game is ready. It's time to get going. I'm going to let you two get to what you do best, which is commentate some racing. So take it away, fellas.
It's Grand Pooh Bear
we
up
are
first.
in Silverstone for the very first race, track 1 out of 4, as we of course go on board with Grand Pooh Bear, looking very, very happy and excited for what is going to be at the moment the qualifying session. Let's see whether Grand Pooh Bear will be able to put himself on top of his little championship. Of course, it's broken up in 2 championships, both 10 drivers. Let's see how they will do at the moment on their outlaps. But let's find out. What do you think, Evan?
Well, you can see it's going to be a 10-minute session. There's our first look at the Indy 500 champ, Tony Kanaan. 10-minute, looks like an open qualifying session. So that's interesting, right? On the sim, you can qualify at the same time as everybody else, but be given a private track. If it's a closed qualifying session, it looks like because there's a lot of other cars out there, it's an open qualifying session. So those other cars, slower than you, faster than you, the other class of car entirely, that's going to be a factor, because they're going to get in the way of your preferred braking lane. They're going to be in the way when you get in the corner, off the corner. So that's kind of an added element in this 10-minute session, is basically all the other 19 cars are obstacles that are going to make it more difficult for you to get down the fastest lap time you can.
100%. And you saw on the left-hand side earlier as well the scoring for this event. Every single race, you can score basically similar to the F1 style scoring of points. 25 points for the win, all the way down to P10, 1 point. So obviously it's going to make a bigger impact getting that P1 compared to, let's say, from a P8 to P9, that's only going to be a few points in between. So yeah, you definitely want to be on the podium here to get the most amount of points, which of course makes sense. But here we go then, we're on our first lap at the moment on board with Heikki. And there we go, we already have the first instance of you need to find that space on the track to be able to do your lap. And there you go, yeah, he knows it. His lap is a little bit compromised here at the start, but luckily he can just laugh about it.
Yeah, the benefit of the 10-minute session is you're going to be able to get a couple of looks at the lap, but tell you what, Silverstone's not a short circuit. I mean, it's a long way around. You're only going to get maybe 2 good looks at a lap time, depending on what kind of restrictions are on the session. This is one of those prototype cars that we're on board with Heikki right here. You'll see it's kind of hard to see out the front windshield. It's going to be even trickier when it comes to the blind spots in the rain and some high-speed corners, a little bit of an overrun there. You also have to run clean laps in qualifying if you want your lap times to be allowed. You put that car in the grass. If you see a 1X or a 4X, that kind of green indicator at the top of the screen and off track, that'll actually disqualify the laps. So if your laps aren't clean, not going to count on the timesheet.
Yep, and that one was not clean so far, and it didn't really matter too much either, because it was kind of a warm-up lap there after he got impeded there at the start of his lap. Now we're on board with Melina, who is also on a lap, of course, in a different class of cars. You can see the car looks a little bit different from this onboard view. This is the GT3 cars that are to be used by the casual racing group, and obviously 2 championships we have to take care of, we have to take a look at, with Melina right here, trying to put a good lap in.
Oh no.
And being a little bit nervous, it seems like.
This is a tricky racetrack, and well, you heard Grand Pooh Bear talk about him, Casey Kerwin. He's a NASCAR world champion on the surface, but that does not mean that these road courses scare him. He's obviously in the prototype class. Now, you can see top of his screen, that kind of live delta indicator is about 1/10 of a second in the green over what is his best lap time. So you can actually see what the drivers see in real time as they either make up or lose time throughout a lap. That'll actually aid them the next trip around the racetrack. Where did I lose time? Where did I gain time? Seems like the more in the green you go, the better. And Kerwin trending the right direction right now. He seems pretty calm. Not a lot of chatter from Casey.
He knows he is competing for that big prize pool, obviously, and he knows he has the skills, because Casey at the moment in this whole group is the highest rated driver on iRacing, so we can expect a lot from him right here, as we're currently on board with Samzoid, who is very close to the car in front, perhaps trying to pick up a little bit of a slipstream on the next straight, but I think, yeah, the car will go out of the way. What you can get a little bit extra speed when you're just about behind of the car in front on those straights. It kind of makes the air in front cleaner, which makes the car go quicker in the straight line. Makes a lot of sense, but you'll see the car today, especially in the race, trying to dug into that slipstream, to gain more time on the straights. In qualifying, it will be tough, because obviously, if you get closer, at some point you'll be too close, and then it will hurt your time. But at the moment, it doesn't hurt Samzoid's time, because he's 30 or 3/10 up right now, trying to get closer to his fastest lap time for the moment. As he comes through the last 2 turns, 4/10 up, little bit of a moment oversteering the car through that turn. But he has the grip, and he comes over the line to get a decent lap time. And that is, at the moment, P3, as Pablo actually puts in a better lap time compared to him.
1 minute 45.285, the lap time for him. You'll see they'll put down a fast lap, then they'll go to the pits, reset, get a fresh set of tires, and go out there. And to your point on how the draft is good and bad, it's good on the straightaway, right? That car in front of you is punching a hole in the air. It's giving you less air resistance. The car's going to go faster in a straight line. Well, the problem is, if you're in a group like this, when you get to a corner and you don't have as much air on the front of the car, well, that's going to take away downforce. The car's not going to want to turn as much. It's going to get tight, right? Tight's when you turn the wheel in, but the car doesn't rotate as much. That's understeer. We'll toss some of those terms out as well over the course. So I almost don't know if I'd rather be in a group like this or on my own. And you can see Pablo there trying to set up. This is the last couple of sets of corners. So you're not really going to take that turn at race speed. Now you're going to try to send the straight shot here, get yourself some speed, and maybe try to aim and get a heat lap. And it looks like he does not want to be with those other cars. So he's very clearly backing off, getting away from them, scrubbing the car side to side. That's to warm up the tires. The tires will grip up more if there's heat in them. And Pablo very clearly wants to be around nobody. He has let that pack of 3 or 4, whatever it was, just get away.
100%, and he's looking good so far in terms of the lap time. Of course, warming up those tires for what is probably going to be one of the last runs right here. We got 3 minutes left in this session, which means most of the drivers will be able to do 1, maybe 2 runs towards the end, as we are going on board with Pulpo Lopez through the last few turns, trying to go as wide as possible, maybe even able to use a little bit more of the track right there. But of course, they're trying to find the limits, looking up a tiny bit. You saw the car kind of vibrating, now getting stuck behind the car in front. Luckily a quicker car, or at least in the same class, but over the line it's going to be I think about the same lap time. No, a quicker lap time with a 144.6 at the moment, 7/10 behind of Casey Kerwin, who looks to be set to get that pole position here for the first race.
Yeah, he's cruising, at least for now. We've got a long way to go, but Kerwin's advantage, to your point, 7/10 of a second. That sounds like a really small interval, right? In the grand scheme of things, 7/10 of a second is very, very short. But in racing terms, it's a healthy gap, and I think Casey's pretty happy. We're going to alternate over the course of the night which race, right? Race A or race B is either dry or wet. I think all of these drivers appreciate, Casey especially right now, P1, that we're starting in the dry. Just get one race under your belt, get through the session, and then we can worry about the chaos of kind of the double dose of chaos, the inverted grid and the first wet race coming up in race B here at Silverstone. But the clock is winding down, just a little bit over a minute left for these drivers to maybe get one more lap in. Lap times, to our point, in kind of the 1 minute 44 second range for the prototype drivers. Those GT3 cars over 2 minutes in length. So if you haven't started a lap right now, you're going to run out of time before that clock strikes 0 to finish your lap if you're trying to improve your starting position.
100%, and to wake him up, we heard a little bit of a Fufuzela in the lap right there. As we go on board with Borja at the moment, to shed some light, of course, on that GT3 class. He is at the moment on pole position, which means he will start in P1 for the main race in race A. Honestly though, Evan, I am actually maybe even looking more forward to the next race after this one. But we haven't seen any race yet, but the next race after this one, where we're going to have rain and that inverted starting grid, obviously, like you were talking about. But yeah, of course, at the moment, Borja in a very good spot to start that race from. But the gaps are super, super small with HCDC. I like that name, by the way. Right behind in P2 with El Regiri, who I know from the F1 side is a very, very quick driver, also very aggressive. So we'll probably see some very good battles going into the race later on as well.
And here's another look at one of the drivers rocking the VR, not currently in the car. This is kind of the super spectator or theater mode that you can get in the service. I was curious if he was watching himself or some of the other cars, because you can jump on board and spectate kind of a colleague of yours in the race and figure out their braking points and where they're lifted, where they're accelerating, where they're shifting. You can't keep your cards close to your chest in an iRacing session. Anybody, all of the other drivers can kind of jump on board, watch your line, steal your data. My favorite thing is, and again, I'm looking forward when we get some of those viewer submissions as well later in the stream, but how different every single sim rig that we've seen so far is. I think that's one of my favorite parts about sim racing, is you can customize that to exactly how you want it.
Yeah, and according to Grand Pooh Bear, the more you spend on your sim rig, the quicker you are going to be. So let's see what it will be. But in the meantime, a warm welcome to those of you who are joining in to the iRacing Showdown right here. I would love to know in the chat at the moment, who are you repping in today's races? We have a lot of very, very talented streamers, iRacers, whether they are veterans in iRacing or just getting started. I would love to know, who are you repping today, as we have a very close move there into turn 1. Most of the session is over at the moment, but Pulpo Lopez still looking to go and keep driving here to warm up for the race later on. I think, though, the session is over, isn't it?
Yeah, checkered flag is out, so nobody else can start a lap. There is a small buffer that will allow some drivers to finish a lap that they're already on. There's about 60 seconds left on that buffer, so depending on where you are on track, you can have an opportunity to still finish and complete that lap, but that's not going to apply to everybody. You can see he's pushing a couple of other cars as well, just up the road, diving out to the pit lane. So I don't expect any more shifts on the starting grid. We're probably going to be looking at the end of the flying lap times. One more in the books there. I don't see any change for Pablo Lopez. So that's just about going to do it. We'll let the waning seconds trickle down, and we're just moments away from going to the grid for race number 1.
We've seen a few drivers have not put lap times on. Perhaps they are doing a challenge, as we always like to see on Twitch, right? We do those challenges. In the prototype section, Jarno Opmeers was hiking, not setting a lap time at the moment. So perhaps they'll try and do a last first challenge in the first race right here. Perhaps they want to stay out of the chaos that will unfold at the very start here. But what a qualifying session, everyone. Absolutely focused and pushing here while we see Pablo Lopez taking a little bit of a drink. It is going to get very hot in those rooms with those simulators.
Those computers are going to be spitting out some hot air, and it is going to keep these drivers warm. Maybe not quite as warm as if you're in a real car, but that is it for the qualifying session, and we are ready to go racing. GrandPOOBear is ready to rock and roll. He's, no stranger to speed running, but I know it's a 15-minute race. It's essentially a speed run, right? It's not a 12-hour endurance race. It's not a 24-hour endurance. It's a 15-minute sprint for all intents and purposes. Every driver is going to need to give it their all from the get-go. And you can see they're lined up right now stationary on the racetrack behind the iRacing safety car. One thing that we should point out, Tom, is it is rolling starts, I believe, for all 8 races here today. That does play a pretty big factor in start procedure. Those prototype cars, so the faster cars, will be gridded ahead of the GT3 cars. So they're not going to have to deal with the GT3 traffic right off the bat, but they will come very quickly, chasing them from behind, and we'll see if they catch them before the 15-minute clock is done.
100%. Yeah, so that's going to be very, very interesting to see if those prototype cars can do a whole lap and perhaps lap the GT3 cars. If they can, then there will be some teammate games here, because some of the GT3 cars can make sure to hold off the competition in the quicker class cars. But let's see then, as we're off the grid at the moment. We are, of course, doing a rolling start. So once the safety car goes into the pits, then we are going to wait for the lights to go green, and then it's time to get going for the very first race of today. Race A of track 1. Race 1 of 8. As you can see at the moment, Pablo very, very focused. What will it be then as the lights go green in just a moment?
Lights are green. We're off and away for race number 1 at Silverstone. It's a good jump for Kerwin. Your pole sitter gets the lead first time through turn 1. I'd say that looked pretty clean for most of our prototypes as the leaders try to get single filed out quickly. Still side by side from about 4th on back, but there's the perspective of Pablo in 3rd, ducking to the inside. That was a quick challenge there. I think that was Samsoid looking in, wasn't able to make the spot, and now they head down to the back half of the track.
It looks like there's going to be somebody behind of the car of Pablo who's trying to go for a move perhaps, but no, they stay behind at the moment. Of course, the first lap of any races, we look to go and see HCDZ, who was way up in front of that GT3 back there, loses the car and is going to go all the way to the back of their own class, which is going to be a bit of a bummer. But as we go back to Pulpo Lopez, we saw, of course, in the first lap, the tires are going to be super, super cold. So they need to warm up the tires slowly but surely. And that's exactly what happened there with HCDZ. He overestimated how much grip he has in the first lap, and unfortunately, he'll have to go and come from the back of the grid. But luckily, it's 15 minutes, Evan.
Yeah, I suppose if you want to make a mistake, lap 1 is the time to do it, but it's certainly putting him on the back foot. And to your point, that's all it was. It was cold tires for HCDZ, just too much throttle coming out of a slow corner, spun the rear tires, car lost grip, it spun out. You can see the gap between first and second. So Pulpo Lopez right now P2, Casey Kerwin, your race leader, is the car that he is looking up towards. Kerwin not able to get away, but that's about a 7/10 of a second gap. There's the onboard look now with your race leader. And again, Casey, all he does on iRacing is enter world championships and win world championships. Look at that face. No smiling, no moral victories for who he's racing against. He is locked in. That is one of the most talented drivers on iRacing, and he is leading the way right now in Race A.
Only once the job is done, you can smile. Now, as we go on board with Grand Pooh Bear, we saw him making up a few positions already because he started P9 there in this class. He's already up to P6 or P7 there. I believe it's P7, as they went very hard over the curbs there, which could hurt you later on. El Rey Giddy lost out on a few positions as well, with that mayhem happening as HCDZ lost the car there at the start because El Rey was starting in P3 and he's now around P6 here, right in front of Grand Pooh Bear, who is still looking to be very close. As we go on board then with Quirketize, still very close to this pack as well. In the GTP cars, you can see a little bit of a gap now between of Casey Kerwin and the rest. As oh my goodness, there might be a move getting happening here, but not quite yet. There's just different lines looking to see where the opportunity will arise to go for the move. But, and there you go, a little bit of a track extension, and you only have 10 of those, Heaven.
Yeah, that's key too, right? We talked about how those off tracks would disallow a qualifying lap. Well, if you get too many of those in the race, it's going to penalize you. Let's go on board with the driver in the middle of this trio. It's Samsoid, but watch that rear view mirror. Challenge going to be coming from behind as the pressure continues. Looking to the outside, not going to make the spot. Samsoid holds the bottom. That's a bit of a defensive line, but watch his eyes in the bottom right. He's almost going to be forced to use that virtual mirror at the top of his screen to see what the car behind him is doing and to put the car there. Oh, but a big bobble there. That's going to open up the door.
Ooh, as he leaves a little bit of space there, he goes and absolutely drifts through the last corner. Quirketize managed to go for the move, and we saw in the rear mirror how he was doing different lines there to try and just put pressure onto Samsoid, and he did. That pressure got to him in that last and final turn, drifting through the last turn, and then obviously Quirketize went for the inside with a better traction zone, and now 1 second quicker already than his previous fastest lap time, which means he probably has some pace in the bag. And that could also mean that he's going to try and close in to Pablo GZ, who you can just about see coming up into the next turn right now.
Yeah, Pablo GZ really benefited from that little battle those two had because it allowed him to pull a bit of a gap. But to your point, as soon as Quirketize got clear, started making up time. You can be a half a second faster than the next car. Catching somebody is one thing, passing them cleanly, I might add, is another. I mean, that's exactly what we saw there. It takes a little bit of time to set it up, and now you're on board with your second in class and overall. The 504 car continuing to chase Casey Kerwin. Well, we can see Casey out the windshield, but he's a little bit further than we saw last time. That gap up to about 1.4 seconds between first and second in class. Let's go back to see Daniel Gray for the first time in this one.
He might go for a move soon as well. You can see him now just trying to stick within that rear of Strati in front, just getting that slipstream.
Put these cars on baseline and not like medium downforce or something.
And he's trying to find for an opening at the moment, as he is trying to go and...
At the start of a race, it was like driving the Titanic. Now it's
he's
like
talking setups. He wants more downforce on the cars. Baseline's kind of the entry-level setup that's going to work kind of everywhere for these cars. But with iRacing, there's thousands of different adjustments you could do to the car in the sim, much like a real-world car, to kind of tune it into this track or that. He's saying, listen, this baseline setup, which is going to allow these cars to drive at all four tracks that we're racing at today, is not tuned for Silverstone. That makes it even that much more challenging. He wants more downforce at a high-speed track like this.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be tough for him to try and keep it on the track right now. We saw that happening, of course, in the first lap as well. But it's still fairly close track, close grid right here. Looking at the lap times on the top left, you can see as well what the fastest lap times are, or at least the last lap times of everybody is. But it's all in between of a second of each other, from, I would say, P2 all the way down to P7 here. It's between 1 and 1.5 seconds per lap. So everyone is able to stick just about close here. And perhaps we'll see some mistakes happening later on when the tire wear kicks in as well.
And we jump back to the teammates race. So the drivers in those GT3 cars, you see their leaderboard left-hand side of your screen. Aboard are the current class leader of those. Captain's race, the prototype cars, Casey Kerwin, currently the fastest. That's how we'll kind of keep track of where they are, because remember, there's a battle within a battle. Yeah, we want to see who wins the prototypes or the captains. Yeah, we want to see who wins the GT3s or the teammates. but there's a team championship as well. So you're looking for some consistency in all of this.
100%. As, of course, this is also for some very, very valuable points. I wonder if we will even see the GTP cars overtake the GT3 cars towards the end. What do you think, Evan? Are they going to overtake towards the end? Or do you think, no, they're going to be around, maybe just closing in towards the end?
Yeah, that's the tricky thing, right, is they are closing in now. I think they might get one good look at them, and that's about it. So that's going to be really exciting when Kerwin and company get there, because they're running lap times that, well, let's look. Casey Kerwin's last lap time as the leader was a 1:44.132. Your leader in the GT3 class, a 2:03.765. That's a 20-second difference. I think they'll get to them once, and when that happens, Kerwin, Pupo Lopez, Pablo, everybody at the top of the prototype class, that's where this race could be won or lost, is getting around that traffic, because it's not like you're passing another car in class. Passing a slower class of car is just so foreign because the braking zones are different, they accelerate differently, they take corners differently. It's probably going to be the most treacherous point in the dry races that we see.
Ooh, as we have a little bit of a mistake from the car in front, the Lamborghini, who is currently going a little bit wide. Now we've got Sexo Gaming trying to go for a move. He's going to try and go up the inside, trying to break a little bit deeper. Will he leave the space on the outside? Yes, he does. But I saw on the top of the screen, there's a little bit of a tab there, as the Lamborghini had to go all the way over the curb. You saw him jump up in that rear view mirror. But Sexo Gaming is able to go through, and that is another position.
Battle's not done yet. Look at the rear view. You can see the challenge is still there. From Joshua's to the inside now, looking to the right-hand side. He is going to make a dive. We'll go side by side. Oh, a bit of a door slam there. So aggression in the battle for 13th, but this is P3 in class. And he holds him off for the moment, but I don't think they're done.
They are not done yet, as the Lamborghini had to go and, brake a little bit right there to make sure he didn't hit Sexo Gaming, which, of course, in that turn, you want to try and have the best exit as possible. But that's definitely a battle that will go for the big points, because obviously from P4 to P3, that is the podium. And, of course, you'd like to be on the podium. Now, we come to the moment that we have been talking about before. Casey Kerwin closes in to those GT3 cars. Will he go for the overtake around the outside? Yeah, it should be easy, because his car will have more grip compared to the GT3 car. But at some point, there will be a GT3 car that is not just going to let him by. And when is that going to be? That is the question.
And he's also hoping that those GT3s know he's coming, right? I mean, the speed difference is just so large that he almost has to watch out for them as opposed to vice versa. If you're the GT3 car, what Casey wants you to do is be predictable right there, right? That car kind of held Casey up a little bit, but that's okay because it was predictable. That car stayed in its racing line. Casey knew where it was or was not going to go. That's exactly what he wants. But look at all of those GT3s up the road. It's going to get thick. He was 3.2 seconds at a Pupo Lopez when he caught these cars. We'll see if he can navigate the traffic better. That's a good 2-for-1 special right there.
Oh, it is close. It is very close. And you have to have a lot of courage to just, put the car there and have faith in the other drivers that they have seen you, because if they haven't seen you, they will turn in, and that could ruin your race. And the Pupo Lopez is waiting for that moment to happen where somebody's just not looking, or maybe even I don't think they're gonna do it like in the way of they'll tell their teammate to make sure that they'll give a little bit of a tab. Maybe we'll see that later on, but probably not. Of course, all of them will want to do it as honest and as legal as possible. But we're on board at the moment with Daniel Gray again, of course, once again still in that battle, and now also within that GT3 pack. It's almost 4 wide, or even it's like big packs here with like 4 cars, and you'll have to try and see if you can navigate through. On the left hand side might be the best way to go, as those GT3s almost come together trying to let each other through, and now on the inside a big move that could be possible.
I think this is the element to multi-class racing that Grand Pooh Bear and everybody else loves. You've got prototype cars fighting each other, trying to pass GT3 cars who are also fighting each other. So nobody is inclined to give you the preferred spot, and Daniel Gray continuing to try to chase down Strati. The 81, the 2 of Daniel Gray, the 32 of Heike. That's a battle for 6th, 7th, and 8th overall and in the prototype class, but they continue to have to dodge GT3s. There's a look. Oh, double cross. Right-hand side, then left-hand side. Gray can't get the spot yet, but he's aggressive with about 3 minutes left in race A.
Oh, that was close. And now you saw Traffic holding the car up in front, and Daniel Gray was like, ooh, I'm gonna take my moment here and go up the inside. Then the inside was defended. He goes to the left. I thought he was gonna hit him, honestly. It was so close.
It's kind of a pump fake. Looked one way, went the other way. You got to be careful when you make two moves like that. And we'll see how aggressive these drivers want to get when they start blocking. There's Strati, we mentioned earlier, is the lead car in that battle with Gray and Heike behind him. There's a good look at, I think that was Gray taking a lot of curb. That car got up on two tires through the turn to behind. This is a good opportunity for Strati here. There's a bit of a gap in front. Try to use this to pull some distance. You've only got a couple of laps left in this race, probably 2 to go that time at the start-finish line. High speed, didn't even burp the throttle once, getting around that GT3 car. Well done.
Honestly, it's scary. Just looking at this, it's so scary. In the meantime, also in the GT3 class, as we look on board with Grand Puber, actually not on board right now, but as I look to Grand Puber's time, he's currently in P6, right behind of Josh Imus, so there might be a move going on there very, very soon. He's actually going up the grid very, very steadily here, starting in P9, already up at the P6, so yeah, it looks like he is as much enjoying himself at the moment on track as he was, and as how hyped he was getting started. A little bit before, but yeah, obviously a little bit of time left to go in this race, but we are getting towards the back end. I don't think the GTP car, so the quicker class, will be able to lap the GT3 cars again, so we might have just about, you know, cleared the chaos here, but there definitely will be more chaos with battles happening everywhere at the moment.
Yeah, I agree with you. Casey Kerwin's got a couple of GT3s. Actually, they were there, but they pulled out of the way. They were kind of cars that had been in accidents, but you're right. I don't think they're going to catch the bulk of the pack again. So that was kind of the look for Pupo Lopez or Pablo GZ to get to Casey Kerwin. That was their chance. And in the end, Casey actually gained time through those lapped cars. So he was able to navigate the traffic faster. He's about 5 seconds and change up for the top spot. Daniel Gray, nowhere near 5 seconds to the safe because he's trying to chase down Strati in the 81. They've been going at it pretty much the entire second half of this race. And I think they've got maybe one more lap to sort this battle out.
Yeah, they've got very similar speed at the moment as they try to just find a little bit of space. And now, as there's a couple of cars in front that are a bit slower, there could be another moment, as we saw earlier, where Daniel Gray can just about get an opportunity to launch it up the inside or around the outside of the car in front. But yeah, it doesn't look like it'll be happening right here because the car in front just left the cars by, which yeah, obviously is what you want to see being in these cars. Because honestly, just looking at them overtaking the slower class, it just makes me scared, man. It makes me scared.
You can see Daniel saying he's a little, kind of frustrated. He's been behind him the whole time and just wasn't able to do anything with it. And maybe about a half a mile or so up the road is Casey Kerwin, who continues to even rival his fastest laps of the race all the way down to the very end. Has only got a couple of corners left. He started on the pole for this one, and he's got one final sector coming up before he locks up the win in race A.
Absolutely perfect, almost. He is now having a little bit of breathing room, so you can see him starting to talk. You can see him starting to open up a little bit. Yeah, exactly. He knows if he doesn't make any major mistakes, it's in the bag. The first win in race A. Remember, there will be a race B as well. But as Casey Kerwin comes through the last and final turn, it looks absolutely hooked up, and that is over the line with almost an identical lap to his quickest lap time so far. And that is the race winner as he pulls up to the side of the road. Well done to him. He's got it. The start is here.
Well, Pooh Bear called it out right before we started that they wanted to make a format that could try to keep Casey Kerwin at bay, but on the dries with a pole position, that's just not going to happen. And Kerwin, with a pretty dominant win, he wins the prototype or captain's race as well as the overall. And immediately when the session's done, what do these guys do? They jump out, they go into the spectator mode, and they take a look to see what happened. So instantly they go in and they're reviewing the tape. Who made the move? Who hit me? What could I have done better? And they're going to try to kind of lull this over. I don't know, though, how much they can learn from race 1 because race 2 in the dry is going to be so different. Or in the wet, 100%. I should say, compared to this.
And it's not even over yet, because we have a couple of battles right here, I believe, as well, in the end, which was very, very close. But yeah, epic race. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think you enjoyed it as well, right, Rain Day?
I mean, you guys were phenomenal. I was just hooked in, locked in, watching that. Scintillating action and so many different elements of it too. The layers of this tournament format have been so interesting to me, because you're navigating not only your 10 players that you're working with in your race class, but then as you saw, Casey started to run into the second class, the GT3 cars. It created a whole different dynamic, Evan. And so, yes, this was a great race for him, but now the other dynamics come in, another layer. Let's add rain to this. Things are only getting more and more difficult and challenging for our racers, but it was a great show of performance. And Evan, I think looking at the standouts for you, I want to pick your brain. Who kind of stood out as far as a performance besides Casey that caught your eye?
Well, I think everybody was expecting Casey to do well, right? So I don't think that's going to shock anybody, but Pupo Lopez stayed with him within 5 seconds. Even at one point when Casey was in the lap traffic there, that gap actually shrunk from about 3.2 seconds to 2.5. So I thought, maybe there's a chance at this. And then both Pupo Lopez and Pablo GZ, they just kind of got stuck up behind some of those lapped cars. So those variables is what these drivers don't want to have as a factor. Sure. It's what we love. We love variables because it's going to mix things up. And to your point, the rain is going to add to that because the handling is going to go away. And so is the vision, right? I think so many people think about rain and their focus is, well, there's a lack of grip. That's certainly true. That's kind of first and foremost. But your vision gets taken away from you so much. Your mirrors aren't as effective. So I think that's going to make things super dicey when it comes to prototypes catching up to GT3s. And we had some maybe argy-bargy moments. That was a pretty clean race. I'll say that. Very clean for what I was anticipating.
I did not exactly. I did not expect that at all.
I don't know if that's going to happen in the number 2 one in the rain. We'll see. But very impressed how well and how cordial, I'll say, for the most part, everybody was. Everybody's clearly done this before. No one's kind of a fish out of water. They all put on a good show.
You know, it's easy to do that at the beginning, but as things continue to go and it starts to get real, the pricing starts to show up. They say, okay, I need to make a move. You commented on this as well, Tom. There was a moment we saw Daniel Gray in and out of a car. It looked like he was going to crash. Didn't happen this time. But in terms of the mental capacity for some of the things they're going through here, very important, I think, for maybe this track one for a lot of players to get out clean before jumping into obviously going to be a more difficult run here in race number 2 with rain, and just getting that mental right to prepare for, what will be 7 more races throughout the day.
100%. I think, honestly, this first race was the easiest one. So it's only going to get harder. We started with a clear dry race at a track that normally is, doable. It's not necessarily, it doesn't have huge elevation changes, but with rain, that's going to be completely different. There will be puddles. You need to avoid the puddles. You need to do different lines. You also want to overtake. So are you going to use the rain puddles? But if you do that, you're going to lock up and you're going to go straight on into somebody else. Like, it's going to be crazy. And then later on with the different tracks where you have those crazy elevation changes and corners that are normally really, really hard, I think this was only the beginning. And I honestly thought this was a super fun race already. So,
well, I had a blast watching. Chat, how'd you guys feel? I know it was really, really great. I use the word scintillating because that's how I felt. It's great to see not only their setups, but what's happening, the tension that started to build. And we get to see the results right here on screen. The standings should be ready for you as we see Casey Kirwan easily on top. He was, about 0.5 of a second ahead and led the entire time, 25 points for first. But Evan, Pupo Lopez right behind and stayed that way as we look at our top 10.
Yeah, and I think the big thing to take away is you can see from kind of 5th on back with Sam Soid, Strati, Daniel Gray, they get about a 2 points per position difference, right? So, 12, 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, etc. But look at that weight, right? The weighted points towards the top. Casey Kirwan, 7 more than Pupo Lopez. Then a 3-point gap between 2nd, 3rd, 4th. So those are very top heavy points. I also think some credit to Heikki for the only driver not in the Acura. He was driving the Cadillac. And we take a look at the teammates race standings. So for GT3, popular pick amongst these drivers were the Ferraris, the 296 GT3 with the majority of the field, and Borja taking the win in the 25 points in that category. He wins by about 5.2 seconds. So first in class, both winning by about 5 seconds.
Yeah, I think once you're outside of the mayhem, you kind of can just do your race without, getting slowed down. But yeah, it's pretty interesting that most of the drivers here have chosen almost the same car. And actually the top 5 consisting of the Ferrari right here. It's also cool to see Grand Poober starting P9, now in P5. Also Joshimus going all the way up at the P6, which is looking pretty decent. And of course, a couple of issues, couple of coming together here with El Rey starting in a good position, ending in P10 all the way at the back. So we'll hope to do better here in the second race.
Well, big thing to note too, Pablo and Pulpo Lopez and Grand Pooh Bear as a duo. I was just going to mention this. When you combine second place and I think a ninth place finish or whatever, got 10 points.
Oh, that's close.
28. They're actually in the lead here. So, Evan, I mean, this squad so far, Pulpo Lopez staying in second, and Grand Pooh Bear's performance puts them on top after track 1.
And I would be encouraged by that if I'm those two, because when we talked to Grand Pooh Bear, what did he say about the tracks? He loves the other 3. He put Silverstone on here because he doesn't know it and he wants to learn it. So in theory, this is going to be his worst track because he's not as familiar with it. Now, again, the rain just kind of throws all of those predictions out. You never know what's going to happen. But for those two to be leaving track number 1 with race A in the books and they're leading the standings, granted, Kerwin right there with Albin in 27th, and then Kanan and Borgia also 1 point back. That's not a comfortable margin by any means, but if you say that's your least experienced track and you guys are in the realm up early, I think that's a good sign.
Yeah, Tom, how are you feeling about Grand Pooh Bear's chances here? I mean, also, you look at Casey Agbener, I want to just mention, I think was in second to last place there, bringing in about 2 points because Casey finished with 25. So adding 2, obviously, that would be big if Agbener starts to bring in this racetrack even 5, 6, 7 points. That would certainly help keep them in the front running.
Oh, 100%. I mean, that's the thing. With rain, everything is possible. So it's just about staying out of the trouble. I have done a few races now at iRacing in the rain, and it's literally that. You don't have to be the quickest. Just stay out of trouble. Don't get, too optimistic. Try to go for moves, because if you do that, well, then you might end up 4 laps down, like the guy in P10. But yeah, I think we'll see up and down results all day. In all the races. Sometimes you'll see somebody else at the back. Like, I think we'll see probably a mishap on one of the races as well from Casey. He can't win them all, right? Or can he?
Yeah. Or
find out.
That's the question. I mean, Evan, as someone who's commentated iRacing for so long, and over the course of these tournaments and tracks, you see, things obviously start to impact a performance that starts well and maybe doesn't end well, or things that start slow but rev up towards the end. No pun intended. What's the biggest key that you see, particularly as what determines a winning performance?
It's really just trying to be consistent amidst all the inconsistency, right? If we did what we just did 7 more times, 10-minute qualifying session, dry race where Casey starts from pole, maybe he wins all 8. It's those variables. It's the inverts. And honestly, it's the other cars too who unintentionally are going to get in your way at some point. That is why we run the races and simply just don't do a time attack and call it quits from there. You got to run the races because all of those unpredictabilities is what makes this so much fun.
It certainly makes it fun to watch. And gentlemen, it's time to get back into the races as well. You did a great job on track 1. We'll stick there, but we'll switch to qualifying here as we get ready for our first race in the rain.
Ooh la la. Here we are then on board with the guy who was almost perfect in the last race. Actually, he was perfect. He won the race with 5 seconds. And there we go. He's not perfect here because he goes deep, hitting the brakes on those puddles. It is going to be interesting going into this. Yeah, exactly. You'll see a lot of of lockups here. Oh man, I can't wait. We'll see plenty of mistakes.
Even when he's on his own, visibility is low. It's going to make seeing the other cars more difficult. And again, I want to touch on this iRacing rain model, which is still very new to even the likes of Casey, right? This rain does not operate like rain and maybe some other arcade or simcade racing titles. The water's going to interact one way with the racetrack. It's going to interact a different way with the race car and the tires itself. You kind of have to unlearn all those racing habits that you picked up on how to get around this place in the dry. That does not apply in the rain. You have to relearn how to get around this circuit. The rain's going to kind of fill those low lane, rough areas of the racetrack where it can kind of get down in the groove. But then once that kind of film layer, those standing puddles start to show up, it's a bad sign. Then you're talking about hydroplaning, sliding off of the corners. It is not only, I think we should point out, raining. It's raining. It's not a sprinkle. This racetrack is getting hit pretty hard with some rain too. And again, the engineers with these cars in real life, Tom, can do everything they can to make them drive as best they can in the rain. Well, at the end of the day, they're just not designed to do this. So this is going to be a ton of fun. And again, based on the inverted grid, you're going to have Casey, who won that prototype class earlier, at the back of the prototypes. I think it is worth noting the prototypes are still starting ahead of the GT3, so it is not an all-out melee on the grid. But watching that infighting in each category is going to be wild.
Yeah, and we now have Jarno Opmeer, who is competing here in P1 for the start of this race. For those of you who don't know, I mean, most of you probably do if you follow sim racing, he is the 2 times F1 Esports world champion so far. But this is a little bit different than F1, so let's see how he will fare here. As he starts in P1, right beside him, though, will line up Tony Kanaan on the left-hand side, who has real-life experience. Will he be able to utilize that experience to beat Jarno Opmeer going into the first few turns as we go through the last and final 2 turns here to start our lap? On the start of the first lap, the green lights will happen and will come on very soon, as Jarno doesn't seem to want to get that P1 here for the start. He will move to the left hand or right hand side and get himself started. And here we go then, as it's green, green, green. It looks like Tony Kanaan is immediately taking that P1 spot away from Jarno Opmeer. Jarno going a little bit wide into turn 1. You can see how hard it is to see through the water as he tries to maybe send it up the inside. Yes, he does. He goes for the move. Will he be able to just about keep it side by side? Yes, but Tony Kanaan has the position as he still holds the inside and will probably be going out of that turn, leading the race. Yes, he does.
Now let's see if he can go for the cross. Oh, a bit of a bobble there for TK, and Jarno to the inside. He's going to get the run. You'll see Kanaan slide back in the rearview mirror, and new leader amongst these cars as Jarno gets ahead of Kanaan, and Daniel Gray going to get into second. Look at him tiptoe through the corner, but the best seat in the house is P1 because you don't have that spray off of all of the other cars. Look at this from Quirkatized. It is a mess of spray coming off of the racetrack. You can barely see the other cars right now, and they're maybe 2 feet in front of them.
Wow. Oh, big moment as one of the cars gets pushed off wide. Luckily, able to come back on track, but Quirkatized is absolutely flabbergasted, and he is already getting a little bit of a penalty. He says 5x and he can only get 10x. So basically what happens, if you go off track, you can get a 1x. If you hit someone, you can get a 4x. Now as he looks at the tires, he almost hits another car, which could have given him another penalty. But if you get 10 penalties, you will not be able to continue the race. So he needs to be super careful here as he keeps the inside, goes for a move. It's absolute chaos at the moment. Nobody can keep it on the track, especially with all the spray in front and just having to guess where to brake. It's nuts.
Hey, that's the biggest thing on these straightaways. They're kind of serpentining down the straight. You cannot ride behind the car in front of you, or you will not see the racetrack. You just don't know where the curbs are. You don't know where. Look, right here. Where are you going? You don't know. So you have to stagger to the inside. So Gorgadi's kind of sidestep to the left of the car in front of him, just so he can see where to brake. You go on board with Pablo GZ there now, one of the top runners from earlier in the dry race. He's already driven his way up to P5. And in front of him, that's Casey Kerwin. These two spent a lot of time together in race 1, and Casey has been able to get around Pablo off of the grid after Pablo started in front of him.
He tries to go for a move on the outside, Dan. We were saying earlier, he cannot see, and it is tough to see. We are seeing it ourselves as well. But he goes for the move, and he does not let Casey Kerwin by that easily. Has a little bit of a unstable rear, trying to get on the exit. Casey on the outside. And of course, you have to leave a little bit of space for him then to get that exit, but he's still side by side. Where are you going to brake here? As you can just about see the brake marker boards, which is kind of what you use to, slow that car down and to get your braking points correctly. As Casey actually goes wide, drops in behind, might even get overtaken by the car behind of him. You can see it in the rearview mirror at the moment. It is battling out there for that track position, because whoever's in front of Pablo at the moment has the best position of this group. He doesn't need to worry whatsoever on not seeing anything.
And look at the blocks there by Daniel Gray, high to low, trying to keep Pablo in the mist. And here goes Pablo again, right-hand side. Daniel comes over. He's just trying to keep him in the spray. You don't want to give that car behind you a good view by any stretch. And in the end, Pablo is able to get the spot. Daniel Gray will slide to third overall. And Pablo up to P2 can now set his sights on Jarno Opmeer, who's the class leader. Meanwhile, we go back on board with Tony Kanaan, who had the benefit of kind of gaining some spots based on the invert, but was involved in some contact early in this wet race, and he finds himself way down the running order, 9th in class, looking to make up some spots.
You reckon it was contact, or was it a little bit of a mistake on the exit of the obviously the first 3 turns there? I didn't completely see, but I think it was a little bit of a little bit of a squiggly rear end trying to just about defend from Jarno there, but. Perhaps
he actually came down pit road. So Tony Kanaan came down pit lane to get some service done on the car. I don't know if it was a penalty. You can get penalized if you kind of cut a corner. It could be kind of various different things, but it actually came from that. He was forced down to pit road for whatever reason and spent a good amount of time on pit road, 56 seconds total. Well, that's enough to kick you back a half lap right there.
Here we go then. We go off to the leader at the moment in this race, just about behind though. We have a car that is trying to get closer and closer, but that car is not actually fighting for the lead because that is Stradi, currently P10 and a lap down just about. So Jarno Opmeer managed to lap one of the same class already. Then you can see on the bottom right, Pablo is 3.4 behind of Jarno Opmeer. It looks like it is... easy. Oh, it's not easy going for Jarno because you can see he's holding his breath. He's holding his breath trying to get through the turns and to not spin that car. But completely different lines compared to what we saw in the first race, trying to just about, not hit that water, standing water.
And you'll see that shine from that kind of thin layer of standing water that we've referenced. That's a no-go. You want to avoid that at all costs, and that's why these drivers, their lane's going to have to continue to vary. The rain is still coming down, so the track conditions aren't getting much better. Maybe where some of the cars have run on prior laps will dry up a touch and get rid of some of the water on top of the racing surface, but it would only be minimally. And now you jump back with Tony Kanaan back in traffic. These are 4 position in the overall, but these are all the GT3 cars that Tony passed when passed Tony, I should say, when he was on to pit road. So he's got a big speed difference, but he's got to be careful. You cannot be aggressive with these passes like we saw they were in the dry.
And what an incredible view as well from this POV. Almost as if you're in the car. But don't worry, guys. That is in his simulator, in his room at the moment. It almost looks as if you're inside of his cockpit, which is absolutely awesome to see. As we're on board once again with Pablo GZ, as he is currently placed in the Drivers' Championship in P3. Going very wide here. Actually losing a lot of time as well. 4/10 here in just one turn. As he has got some pressure from behind, I feel like.
I thought he was missing the corner. When you kind of see that expression of the driver tense up and you hear the tires slide, that's not normally a good sign. Let's jump back in the pack as well and jump on board with Melina. They're battling with the 19 up in front. That is 4 position. You got Agbin 3R there. Idreo as well, looking to the left-hand side. That's the, I think, red car in the mirror. It's all rain and chaos as they head off and into the corner. And a bit of a cut there and a touch, and it's going to send Idreo off and into the sand.
Yeah, that was a very opportunistic move there up the inside. I don't think Melina could have done a lot there to, make space for Idro, who, wanted to make some moves. Obviously, Idro needs some points because last race was, I believe, a P9 for him. And Melina is not very happy with that one, but I think mostly just trying to stay alive here in the rain, which at the moment she's doing with all the pack of those GT3s right in front. But I think this is the most important thing, trying to stay alive while everybody else is trying to go for moves. We still have about 8 minutes to go here, so it'll be a little bit of surviving still. But I don't think people are really thinking about surviving. They're all going for overtakes.
Here's the first time taking a look with Wacky Jackie in this one. Kind of midfield in the GT3 class. Started 19th up to 15th. That is a gain. Up the road would be Agbin 3R and then Borja next in line. So there are passing opportunities aplenty. I also love the track map he's got on the top right of the screen there. The blue dots, the yellow dots, probably the cars in different class categories. That's how he can tell not only where they are on the racetrack in a battle, but also that's how you can keep an eye on when those faster prototype cars are catching you, is having that track map on the screen. You can see all the different things, right? Track map, top right, top left. There's a couple of different relatives with intervals and times. These drivers can kind of pick and choose what they put on their screen to pick up data. Also help out who's watching their streams. And Heike is off track and into one of the tire barriers.
Ooh, there's a big one. And now, getting into the tire barriers again. He needs to get back to the pits, and he does so. Of course, there is 2 free tows that you can do. Towing yourself back to the pits doesn't cost you a lot of time, and then you have to get straight back out. But it will obviously cost him more time than staying on the track. But yeah, that is not what he wants to hear. There in race B already. He was in a good position, but as we go to an even better position right now, Casey Kerwin looking to follow Pablo GZ, who is right in front of him. And of course, we've seen Casey Kerwin has the pace, so I'm thinking in a few laps we might see a big battle for this P2 position from Casey and Pablo.
Yeah, you can't see him, but I promise he's somewhere out there in the windshield for Casey Kerwin. There's a quick peek as they dive off into the corner, the battle for second. This is about 4 seconds off of Jarno Opmeer. Now, 5 minutes left on the clock. In theory, it's not done yet. I'm not going to say the five's got it locked up, but as soon as they start fighting with each other for a second, they're going to deviate from kind of their preferred line. It's going to slow each other down. So for Kerwin and Pablo, this may be a battle at best for who's going to finish in second and who's going to finish in third. They both driven their way through from the invert.
I think there is actually another car behind. We can't see him, but it's Pulpo Lopez. Yep. And he, at the moment, is actually holding the fastest lap by over 5/10 compared to Casey Kerwin. So if Casey Kerwin tries to go for a move here soon, and it doesn't really go to plan, then perhaps Pulpo Lopez will be able to take profit and say, bye-bye. I will take the position with a big smile. You can see him. Oh, big moment! Big moment! As the championship leader, or at least the leader of race 1, is going to lose the car. It is going to be Pulpo Lopez who takes the position. And now Casey Kerwin having a car behind who re-overtakes as well. So he has to do it all over again.
No mistakes like this.
Big mistake for Casey Kerwin. And you heard it right there on Pulpo Lopez. No mistakes. I mentioned it earlier as well. This is you versus the track more than it is you versus the other race cars. And that is a rare self-inflicted error. Kerwin not only loses third spot to Pulpo Lopez, but Daniel Gray also able to drive by. So Gray jumps up into P4 as they continue to run. Kerwin down to 5th. We'll see if he has any hopes of trying to gain one of those spots back before the race is done. But now for Pulpo Lopez, can he catch up to Pablo GZ? And Daniel Gray having issues navigating this racetrack in the rain. To your point, Tom, and you mentioned, there's not a lot of elevation changes. This racetrack does have 2 relatively similar looking straights. It is a little bit easier in the rain to get a tad disoriented, I'd say.
Oh, 100%. I can imagine some of the drivers who are not completely familiar with this track will perhaps mistake a turn for a different one around here. It all looks, well, I wouldn't say it looks the same because it is still a very legendary track. As, there we go. Daniel going a little bit wide. Now having to cut the grass. It is not a lawnmower, Daniel, but he is treating it as one. And now having to go and yield a little bit of seconds because he cut the track. He's going to be overtaken. Casey Kerwin now going for a move as well. And that was on Daniel Gray, who made that mistake. I don't even think it was pressure. I think it's just treacherous conditions out there. I don't think I could do any better than they are doing at the moment.
Oh, Daniel Gray loses a 2-for-1 special there. Kerwin able to get around him, and so does Quirketize. So that's 2 cars making a pass there. So it's going to be down to 7th, or 6th, I should say, for Daniel Gray. And Kerwin going to get all the way back up to the number 4 spot as Casey Kerwin is on pit road. So maybe some damage or issues, maybe a penalty for Kerwin. But that car to pit road, that is going to
Yep.
be big in this championship. You're on board with TK, Tony Kanaan. He had to pit earlier as well. And with Kerwin pitting, he is just burning positions in the running order.
He's getting back into it. Kerwin, presumably getting a drive-through as he spun the car, getting too many penalties and had to go through the pits to get rid of them. So that gives, obviously, Daniel Gray the position back that he lost just a few turns before. Having Kurkitais just about in front. Treacherous conditions still. And it seems like Pablo, as well as Pulpo Lopez, are closing in a little bit on Jarno Opmeer in P1, who we haven't seen that much since lap 1 from. But we might see a little bit later on here. But of course, the time is ticking. Tick tock, as we get towards the end of this race. And no less rain, but probably a little bit less energy from all the drivers having to focus very, very hard. As we're on board at the moment with Jarno then, do you think, Evan, he will be able to keep that P1? Or do you reckon Pablo will close in and perhaps go for an overtake later on?
I think there's going to be one lap to go next time. I think it's going to be his to lose. I think he lost a lot of that time when he was getting around those slower GT3 cars, right? You got to be much more timid in the rain, passing those slower cars than you had to in the dry. The good news for Jarno is he's very aware of where Pablo and Pulpo Lopez are, right? Bottom right of his screen, that relative, that tells him where all the other cars are, relative, no shocker, to where he is. So up the road, the drivers in blue, those are lapped cars. He knows when he's going to be catching them, but also he gets a live interval, right? 3.3 back to Pablo GZ, 5.4 back to Pulpo Lopez. He knows exactly how much gap he has, and I'm willing to bet he's going to use that time to his advantage and not drive any harder than he needs to. That being said, he just put down his fastest lap of the race right there with one lap to go.
Oi. This is the final lap that we're watching at the moment for those who are on the lead lap right here. Will they be able to keep it, or will these lapped cars that are currently in front of Jarno Opmeer slow him down enough to the point where Pablo GZ, who is very quick, according to Evan, will be able to close in? It is looking close because there's only 1.9 seconds in between both Jarno Opmeer and Pablo GZ. The question is, will these cars treat Pablo GZ as bad as they are doing Jarno Opmeer right now? They're not treating him very bad, but they are making it a bit tougher for him to get by in terms of where he's finding them on the track. He has got a few of those GT3 cars in front. So the question is, if he will find his teammate, will they go out of the way? Because he needs that right now.
And this isn't a place I want to catch a car. High speed right-hander, but Wacky Jackie going to yield the space to Jarno Opmeer. More cars up the road. He's going to get up to Joshimas and Borja Zazo. Will those cars be a factor? The rain continues to pound down here at the Silverstone circuit.
1.3 seconds
couple
now.
of corners.
It is 1.1 seconds now. We can see Pablo GZ right behind of Jarno Opmeer. He got held up a tiny bit in the exit right now as Pablo GZ is seeing, he can almost smell Jarno Opmeer. Will he be able to send it? You can see him right in front and there, but there's one car in between, and that is a GT3, and that could put a spanner in the works for the race of Pablo here, trying to go and take that position. I don't think it will happen as Jarno comes through the next two turns. Still one GT3 in front, so if he's lucky, no, he's not lucky enough, as Jarno goes through the last two turns to take the win of Race B at track number 1 in Silverstone. That was a beautifully managed race, but it got very, very close there in the very last lap.
Yeah, maybe one more lap or one or two more GT3 cars, and that one would have been a different story. But Jarno Opmeer takes home the win. Pablo GZ second. Pulpo Lopez third. A lot of those names familiar. Of course, Pablo and Pulpo had good finishes in the dry, but they double it up with good finishes in the wet. The same cannot be said for Casey Kerwin, who deals with a P6 finish. It's going to be interesting to see where that spin and then, of course, the subsequent drive-through pit road penalty puts Casey in terms of the championship. And how about Jarno? We talk about the invert being the great equalizer in all of this. Well, he got the entire benefit of the invert by starting on the front row and never looked back, led every single lap.
Yeah, you want to be at the back in race 1 so that you can be in the front for the rain, obviously. But remember, it will be different. It won't be the second race being the rain the entire time. So we'll have to wait and see what the next race is going to be, whether that's going to be wet straight away or dry at the start. But let's see. As we are on board right now with Grand Pooh Bear, who is going to finish his last lap as well right here at the moment in that P9 position, and probably getting himself into a little bit of issues here in this race. Minding his own business, he's saying, and waving to the camera.
Who's watching me? How embarrassing.
It's a long
We are
lap.
showcasing his driving at the perfect time, according
it's a
to
long
him at
lap.
the moment.
Everybody's
got to
come around
chat
to
at
the
the moment
finish.
as well. Who are you repping for the races today, and who do you think was driver of the day so far, or driver of the first track so far? As we listen to Grand Pooh Bear right here,
Doesn't matter.
finishing strong.
Finish the race, you know?
Finish the race. There you go.
You hold
Final
it down.
couple of corners. Holding it down at what he did say was the track that he had the least amount of experience with. And I think finally, as he's going to give it a shimmy shake across the line, I think now all cars have taken the checkered flag and smile it off at the end of it all. Silverstone in the books.
You gotta laugh. And Grand Pooh Bear, that wasn't, we weren't watching alone. It was a spotlight on the creator who helped put this showdown together, right, guys? There was nothing about that. I mean, we didn't even know what place you were in at that point. We were just trying to give you a highlight there. It was great to see. I mean, you see the Formula One two-time esports world champion in Yara Opmeer taking that victory cleanly in our top racers. But one of the things that we have to figure out still is, what did that mean for the teams? Because we had good performances, a new winner in our second class as well. The board just still performed. Let's see how it shakes out. We're going to go to a quick break and come back with our standings. Welcome back to Twitch Rivals and the iRacing Showdown featuring Grand Pooh Bear. My name is Rain Day, joined by Evan Basoko and, of course, Tom. We have just seen two great races so far. One in the normal sunlight, like we're used to over here in California on my side, and then one in the rain, which scares every Californian, as you know, as if it was a natural disaster. But our racers, they did a little bit better than that, guys. It was awesome to see them perform. And before we get into the standings here, I got to let you know, chat, it is time. Guessing with Duncan is finished for today. I hope you enjoyed it, and make sure to check out the Duncan leaderboard to see your placement. A friendly Twitch staff will reach out to confirm prizes for the top 10 scores. Come back for the next Twitch Rivals for your chance to play and win. And chat, Duncan has just dropped a new kind of energy for your afternoon boost. Sparked Energy by Duncan is made with vitamins, minerals, and a kick of caffeine to keep you at the top of your game. With two delicious flavors, Berry Burst and Peach Sunshine. Need a boost? Grab a Sparked Energy by Duncan. We were talking about it. I got an order probably coming to me very soon here in between the breaks of our shows.
Jealous.
I got it, but it's not like I need the energy, guys. We have seen such great gameplay so far. It's been really great racing. No need for extra energy, but absolutely grab your Duncans if you have a need for it. They'll get you covered. Let's take a look at the standings, though, Evan. And we saw the beginning of the day start off with Casey Kerwin doing Casey Kerwin things, but it was Jarno who kind of stole the show and never gave it back in race 2.
Yeah, he was able to get the benefit of the invert. Now, again, that's prefaced by a poor result in the dry, but 25 points in the wet is give you about an average finish of 4th or 5th, right, points-wise. So that's going to be pretty good. It's certainly going to jump him up the leaderboard. And Kerwin, with that error, falling to P6 is a big storyline. You look at the teammates' race standings on the GT3 side. Saxo Gaming TV gets the race win in this one, but you still have your consistent names. Borgia up there as well. So starting to maybe pick and piece together who some of the drivers are who I think are going to dictate who walks away with the lump sum of the prize on the line today.
Tom as well. Good performance from Borgia across the board. Maybe our most consistent performer, first and second place across it. But when you look at the overall captain standings, Casey Kerwin with that 25-point win in track 1 still going to do enough. Kind of highlights the importance of just getting one great track under your belt.
I mean, look how close it is. We have 3 drivers on the same amount of points after a full trek, which means 2 races, which is insane to me. Jarno with only 1 really good race. The first one, he was really nowhere. Gets up into P4, so not bad whatsoever either for that one. And of course, going into the teammate standings, that's looking a little bit more dominant here for Borgia, who was very quick in the first race, also very quick in the second race, obviously, which would have been tougher because he had to come from that inverted position, with Saxo Gaming looking very good too. I'm very impressed by all these drivers being able to come through the grid and stay in a very stable position.
It's been a great performance from both the captains and their teammates. Remember, captains running GTP race cars, so they're going to be a little bit faster, well, a lot faster, as you can see. And also GT3s for their teammates who are maybe more casual at this game, not necessarily with the same experience, but it's worked out this way because you put those points together, and whether you're dominating as a teammate or dominating as a captain, you can see that it keeps things pretty close. Evan, Jarno with that win, and Wacky Jackie take the overall in the first place. Strati and Saxo Gaming and Tony Kanaan and Borgia not so far behind in second and third.
Yeah, I think Tony Kanaan's got a lot more in it. He hasn't had the results he wanted. Borgia's been kind of the flag carrier for those guys. It's very tight up front, and the fact that Casey Kerwin, 20 minutes ago, we were singing the roses on how he's spearheading that team. One little mistake drops them to P6 in the combined championship. So I think that goes to show, yes, you have drivers who are very talented, the Jarnos, the Caseys of the world, but they're not just going to walk all over these guys, right? Being consistent in the wet, in the dry, and at all these tracks is critical. We are far from deciding who's going to win this championship.
Something that you've been familiar with as well. Actually, we talked about the experience that you've had just even in that car. For a lot of people watching, they haven't been close to something like the experience of being in an F1 car. And as we get ready to transition into game into our next track, which is my favorite to say, Spa-Francorchamps, I want to just say and leave it to you, Tom, to kind of help people understand just the intensity that is a part of it, and not